So welcome to our student experience webinar, which is part of the ANU webinar week. And thank you for joining us today. My name is Akib and I work as the Senior Marketing Officer at the College of Science and College of Health and Medicine. I will be your host for today's session, but before we get started, some housekeeping things to note. This webinar will be recorded and the recording will be made available after the event. You will be able to ask questions or make comments via the question answer tab located at the bottom of your screen. If you do not wish your comments or questions to be in the recording, please contact science@anu.edu.au after the event. I will also leave those details in the chat box so that you can get in touch with us. Today, I would like to introduce our panelists, Samuel, who's currently studying the Master of Professional Psychology, and Yushi, who's studying Master of Clinical Psychology at ANU. Today, they're here to share their insights, experience, and answer any questions that you may have. So let's get started. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave those questions in the question answer tab, and we'll get to you just after we finish the session. So hi, Samuel and Yushi. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey.
You're welcome.
Could you tell us about yourself, your background, and why you decided to study psychology? Yushi, do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm from Singapore. Before I came to ANU, I was studying psychology. I did a bachelor, so it's a combined honors and masters in research back in my home country. And so I just graduated last year, and I worked for about 6 months as a teaching assistant or a tutor in the university before I came over here. Yeah. I think I was always naturally kind of inclined to study psychology because I have always taken interest in just getting to know people and to hear about the narratives and lives that people have. And I think very naturally, psychology is something that really makes us more sensitive as well as more curious towards the lives that people have. So yeah.
Right. So how about you, Samuel?
Yeah, so I am 26 years old and I'm currently in the professional psychology program at ANU. I originally started studying teaching, actually. I have like an interest, as Yushi said, in connecting with people and helping them as well. And I sort of found myself working in schools as a teacher's assistant, and I thought teaching was a natural fit. One of my first pracs as a teacher, I sat in on a meeting with the school psychologist, the executive teacher, and the classroom teacher, and was completely mesmerised by the perspectives that the psychologist had and the advice that they were giving to the teachers to help this student. And from that moment, it was like, that is where I want to be. Like, being able to help people in that way seems like really cool.
Right, great, nice story. Samuel, you're from Canberra, and needless to ask, how do you like Canberra? So I think you're now, you've stayed here all through the life, so I don't have to ask you about it, but how do you enjoy Canberra as a city?
That's a very topical question, and definitely is talked about among students all the time. I'm one of those people that I can't get enough of Canberra. I think it's got, it feels like a big country town, but with all the conveniences of like a big city. And for those of you who love like recreation and getting outdoors, Canberra's great for that. So there's lots of like outdoor tracks and bike tracks and running and walking tracks, as well as like the uni atmosphere as well, the party atmosphere. So it's sort of got a bit of everything, and it's not too busy, not too crowded. I really like it.
Right. So Yushi, where are you originally from, and how do you like Canberra?
So I was from Singapore before. It's a very busy city-state, so I've definitely enjoyed the more relaxed pace of Canberra. Yep. When I came here, I actually experienced everything of Canberra, including smoke, hail and coronavirus. Yeah, but it's been getting better, and yeah, I really love the weather here. It's sort of sunny but not too hot, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of nice outdoor. Yeah.
Right. The best part, what I love about Canberra is the coffee. So I think you
Oh,
can just never go wrong about your coffee. So if you love and enjoy coffee, I think Canberra is the place to be. And I think as a city as well, like we've done such a great job in terms of containing the virus, the COVID especially, and almost everything is resuming back to normal, which is like really, really positive at the moment, given the current situation. So that's another positive of being in the city. And also like one of the really good things about Canberra as well is it doesn't take you more than 30 minutes from one place, if you have to travel from one place to the other. So from point A to point B, less than 30 minutes. And we also have a lot of freeways around. So I think it's so easy to travel and less of traffic.
that's
Right. So since you both are studying different programs, one is the professional psychology and the clinical psychology. So what's your program like? So what's the basic difference between the two? So Yushi, do you want to go explain about your program and talk about how your program looks like for the 2 years?
Yeah, sure. So the clinical psych, the Masters in Clinical Psych is a 2-year program, and we do our coursework as well as placements simultaneously. So for the first year, the first semester, we would do our coursework. We were supposed to begin clinics, but we didn't manage to because of COVID. And the clinics would begin with one that is internal, which means that we do it in the psychology clinic. And after that, in the second year, we kind of do our placements at places of our preferences so we can indicate where we would like to do it. Yep, and I think we do 2 rotations before we finally graduate. Yeah, and so all these will be concurrent with our coursework, so that it makes sure that it equips us in terms of professional development, that we have the skills to be able to interact with our clients. And we will also receive close supervision from our supervisors to ensure that we are well taken care of and that we take care of others well as well. Yep.
Right. Right. So I think I should have asked this question before, but what exactly is clinical psychology? What do you get to do? Do you get to read people's minds?
Yeah, that's the number one most common question we get. And to bust the myth, no, we do not read people's minds, but we infer people's minds from their behaviors.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think very much what we do is related to mental health. So we see clients who struggle or have difficulties in terms of their mental wellness, and we do therapy with them to work with to kind of equip them with skills, as well as to work through with them how to just tolerate as well as grow through their difficulties. I think that's really what we do as a profession. Yeah.
Right. So Samuel, how about you? So what exactly is professional psychology and how is this different or similar?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the big difference, one of the first differences between the clinical and the professional program is that the clinical is a specialized program to be a specialist in the clinical psych area, where the professional program aims to build like the students up to be able to achieve all the competencies of what a psychologist can do to then go out and then practice essentially. So without a specialization. Some more differences between from what Yushi said and my program is that we don't have a placement until the second half of our second year. Right. So we spend a whole semester inside, like ACT Health is one of the program, I guess, it's sort of been built alongside ACT Health. So we will have like a pathway in there.
Right.
Have I sort of answered that?
Yeah, that made sense. So how does your structure look like? So what's the program structure like?
Perfect,
what subjects do you get to study?
Yeah, so in our first year, it kind of operates as like an honours year. We have a research project that we do alongside our coursework.
Right.
And at the end of the year, we submit a thesis. And in terms of like the studying we're looking at, it's very, very practical. So it's sort of building up all of the skills and knowledge to then, as I said, be able to practice as a psychologist after the program, but also to, I guess, be competent when we're in our placement as well.
Right. Right. In your field, so do you know any exciting projects that are going on at the moment? Either one of you can answer that. That's all right.
Well, I would say, I mean, I don't know of any specific ones, but so for our clinical psychology, we also need to do a thesis.
Yeah.
So I'm working under a supervisor who specializes in suicide-related research. So I think that's something that is very interesting to me. Yeah. So he studies the kind of risk factors for suicide in the population. Yeah.
Interesting. And similar to Yushi, so currently I'm working on like a body image project with a researcher who is one of the prominent researchers in the field of body image, which is really exciting, and some of the things we can potentially find out are very exciting for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's body image, Samuel, if you don't mind me asking?
Body image, so the way that people or individuals look at themselves, or how they, I guess, would objectively
Right.
themselves, and how they feel in their body.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, very interesting.
Right. So Yushi, so if you are to work as a psychologist, what's the process? How do you get to be a psychologist?
Okay, so as students currently, to practice in the clinics, we need to have provisional psychology registration. And it is only after we graduate that we have registration as a psychologist. So then we can start practicing. But we need to work for 2 years in this registrar program, which is basically just you need to see to a certain number of client hours,
right,
and receive adequate supervision. And 2 years later, you can finally receive registration as a clinical psychologist.
Right. Yeah. Great. Okay. And so once you complete the program, what are the job prospects like? And are you planning to complete your PhD, or do you intend to work as a psychologist after you finish?
I intend to start working as a psychologist, so I don't have any plans for a PhD.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the prospects are, but I believe that I mean, a psychologist, a clinical psychologist should be pretty much in demand. So as long as we're not too picky about what we do, I think it shouldn't be difficult to find a job. But I think the settings that you can work in are pretty wide, and there's a variety in which we can choose from. So if you want to, I'm sure you could work in public hospitals or community settings, or even private practice if that's something that you wish to. Yeah.
So within your clinical side, the clinical cycle, can you specialize in some areas? Do you get to choose your specialization as well?
So yes, in the sense that you can kind of find your niche in terms of the placements that you choose. So for instance, if some people know that they're definitely going to work with children and families, so in their placements, they would select like places in which they have the opportunities to work with children and families. Yeah, but in terms of maybe specializing further, I think in terms of like learning different kinds of therapy styles beyond what the school teaches you, probably you need to go for further training external of school. Yeah.
Right. Samuel, what are your plans after you completed the Master of Professional Psychology program?
That's a difficult question to answer. So before starting the program, I thought I had a really good idea about sort of where I wanted to go with psychology, and I was very set on like organizational psych. but since starting the program and sort of learning more, and the lecturers sort of bringing in guest lecturers who talk about their careers and experiences have sort of really broadened my, I guess, prospects or career expectations. So as I said earlier, I'm very interested in working with kids and families.
Yeah.
But I'm really not sure. There's
You're
so much
still
out
trying
there.
to figure out based on all the options you have. So apart from working as an organizational psychologist, what else, what are the other options that you may have?
Really, the options are all open. So after the program finishes, like we'll go for a provisional, like registration will be a provisional psychologist for a 1-year internship,
Mm-hmm.
and then be able to register as a general psychologist. So that will enable us to do, like, I guess, everything in psychology, but without the specialization of clinical.
Yeah.
Um,
Great.
I don't know how to go further.
With the internship that you do after your 2 years, so how do you find that 1-year internship? So do you work in a clinic or do you work under supervision? So what exactly happens?
Yeah, so during that 1-year internship, our studies with ANU have finished, and that would be an independently sourced internship or with a supervisor.
Right.
As mentioned, the program has been developed like with ACT Health.
Yeah.
And through our placements and even now ACT Health have come to speak to us as well. So we have developed working relationships with them and with supervisors. Mm-hmm. That would make it easier for us to choose or want an internship.
Right. So usually one of the other things is that, one of the benefits also is that ANU has got a psychology clinic on campus, and not many people are aware of that. But how is it beneficial for the students?
I reckon you mean beneficial for students as in for the clinical students.
Yes,
right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I mean, to put a disclaimer out there, I was supposed to start clinics in April, but I have not. So I will speak in terms of like the knowledge that I know about the clinics, rather than from my own personal experience. So one thing is that the good thing about working in the school clinic is that it's kind of a nice transition environment in which that we get to practice our skills on real clients, but it's still kind of well protected in some sense, in which we know that we are part of the school, we are protected by the school. It's a safe place in which it is still relatively fine to make mistakes in some sense. Yeah, and also the kind of clients that the school selects for us in the clinic, they ensure that it is relatively uncomplicated, so that we do not get overwhelmed in terms of our learning process, given that the learning process of transitioning to practice can actually be quite steep. Yeah, and there's a lot of close supervision, so there'll be supervisors in there, and if at any point in time we need help, we feel that we are unable to or unconfident in managing the situation, we know that we can always assess our supervisors for backup. Yeah, so I think it's a very supportive environment in which it helps us grow professionally as well as transition to external placements, and that's where that we can kind of fly. Yep.
Right. So is it mandatory to do the internship as a part of the program?
Yeah, it is, because that is very much part of what it takes to develop us to become a clinician. Yep.
And do you know how many hours you put in as a part of the program? Is it for is it a 1 unit per course or a 2 units, or how does that work? So
I'm sorry, I don't have very good numbers on that.
Okay. Right. So how hard or easy do you think balancing work, study, and research is while you're studying a master's program?
You want to go for that, Samuel?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I was just asked this question a couple of days ago, actually, and the only way I could sort of answer it was like juggling like tennis balls. So during like undergrad, like you get to develop your time management skills and all of that. And like you get very good at juggling 3 tennis balls, let's say. And I found studying at a master's level in a master's program that like you have your research, you have your coursework, like your social commitments and all that. It's like adding a 4th ball and then changing the weights. So they're all like different weights and it makes it a bit trickier.
Yeah.
Like, if that makes sense, it's not impossible, but it's like it's very cool that when you like rock up to class and you're like, yes, I'm ready to learn. Yes, I prepared everything for my research meeting later that day. And then I'm excited to do a final edit and submission on my assignment like later that night. Like it's cool when you can have it all down pat, if that makes sense.
Right.
Definitely a step up.
Yeah. So how's that been for you, Yushi, as an international student studying in Australia for the first time? So was it easy or hard to balance all your work, study, and your research?
Well, I think it's been fine so far. I do agree with Samuel that there's a lot of things that we need to juggle, but I think ultimately transitioning from, let's say, an undergraduate to, say, the master's program, I think what I would encourage, and personally that has been for me, which is I'm trying to do a mindset shift. So I think in undergraduate, it's very easy to be caught up in the grades, but over here, it's really to encourage that learning process. And it's also reflected by not having a grade in our assignments. And I think that had been very helpful for me in terms of just balancing everything, that there's a lot of assignments to do, but it's really being able to give, what's good enough, but not needing to do what is perfect. And I think that's something that we need to take on even in our professional lives as psychologists as well. Yep.
So I think all of the 2 years masters will definitely prepare you well enough for your professional life later on. So that's really good. For all the viewers watching, my advice is to start putting in the question answers in the question answer tab, and we'll take those questions shortly. And before we get to the question answer session, Yushi and Samuel, one last question from me. So finally, how do you feel about the current COVID-19 situation? And as current students at ANU, what's changed for you, and how are you dealing with this change? Yushi, do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first then.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of uncertainty as a result of the COVID situation. We don't know when we're going to start clinics, whether our graduation is going to be delayed. So there is some sort of flexibility that we need to roll along with. But I think I would say that we have been quite, or at least I have been in a position of being privileged or blessed, in which even though this COVID situation has been uncertain, I did have some positive benefits from it, in the sense that because our class load essentially kind of halved because we didn't start clinics. So I found that I had a lot more free time. I could engage in hobbies that I would not otherwise have had. And now all classes are online. I think the transition was pretty fine, in that I think our lecturers and supervisors did a good job in transitioning the classes online and making it interactive. Yep.
Right. So what's your experience like, Samuel?
So I would echo a lot of things that Yushi has said. It's great that there's a little bit more certainty around the situation, and especially here in Canberra, where it's been a little while without any cases. But in terms of the uni, I have like a huge amount of like respect for the lecturers and the program directors of my course that have seamlessly transitioned everything online. It was like for me really, really like easy to do. And that even means like engaging in role play activities over Zoom and research meetings. It was relatively smooth, I found. They did a really good job.
Right. Great. So we'll just move on to the question answer sessions. So anyone having a question, please feel free to drop the question. And the first question is, I think it's for both of you guys. How did you know you wanted to study psychology, and why did you choose ANU? Samuel, do you want to start first?
Yeah. So I think I knew I wanted to become a psychologist from that experience I talked about earlier in the webinar, where I was sitting in a meeting between a teacher, an executive teacher, and a psychologist, and I got to see some of the real world practical examples of how a psychologist can influence things or put in place strategies for children in schools. And that for me was a huge motivator to start studying psych. There was a second part to that question. Sorry.
Yeah, so that was a part of the question. And why did you choose ANU?
Yeah. So there's two reasons why I chose to study ANU. The first is that they offered the professional master's program. So as I finished my undergrad, I was looking for options to do honours, to get the fourth year requirements to register with APAC. Where I saw this program and it sort of covered the fourth and fifth year requirements to then go through to provisional registration, and it was like exactly what I was looking for.
Right.
The second reason is I was attracted as well to the profile that ANU has, or like it's currently ranked as a top university in Australia, and that's very cool to be here.
Yeah, I think the advantages of the professional psychology is that you don't need to do a honors year. You don't have to have done the honors year. So which makes it easier for students to apply who are looking to do the fifth and sixth year, as you just mentioned. So sorry, for the fourth and fifth year of psychology. So which is really a great thing about the program. Right. So how about you, Yushi? So why did you choose ANU as the university to study clinical psychology?
Yeah, so I had several reasons for that. I think the primary one was that actually when I applied here, my husband had a place to study PhD in philosophy. So we were both looking to get into the same university. Yeah, but I think anyone would really want to study at ANU, given that like what Samuel said about, it's standing as the top research university. And even though we are clinicians, we want to be clinicians who are able to carry out research, as well as be clinicians who practice based on evidence-based practices, right? Not something that we just generated out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the environment here is also very supportive. And honestly, being in the program for the past semester, I would really put up my recommendation to anyone who wants to study clinical psych to apply to ANU, primarily because of the supportive environment that we have here. Yeah, the staff really ensure that you are well taken care of, and to encourage you to ensure that you know your limits, you seek the help and the growth that you need for yourself. Yeah.
Right. So one of our viewers want to know more about the career paths that you can take after completing, either clinical or professional psychology. So can you name some more career paths that are associated with your programs? What can you become after you've studied the program? So Samuel, do you want to go first?
Yep, sure. So after the program and with the 1 year internship that we'll have to go through, we will be able to work in a lot of different areas. So we could go into private practice or work in a clinical space. We could also go into organizational space, working with children and families as well is an option for us as a general psych. There's really no limit. Like you can take a path whichever you choose.
Right. How about you, Yushi? what are some of the other career paths that you can take after studying clinical psychology?
That's a good question. I think most people who study clinical psychology aspire to become clinical psychologists. So I don't think we've considered other career paths very much.
Yeah.
But that said, I think it also depends on the degree that you're looking at. So I think you do have more flexibility if you're pursuing, say, the PhD, in which you do have the options to become a researcher or an academic working in the university as well. So we have a few of our supervisors who are there. They're working in the university, but they're also practicing privately on their own. Yeah.
Right. We have some more questions. So there's another question which asks, what can I do if I want to graduate in advance? Graduating in, say, not 2 years, maybe 1.5 years, can that be done as a part of the program? I think, yeah, if you guys know, you can answer that. Or maybe I think it's more advisable for the admissions team to have a look at this, or maybe the program conveners to, think what, for that question, if you can graduate in advance, what I would suggest is to get in touch with us. Once you've applied, we can, assess your mark sheets, your transcripts, and then let you know if that's a possibility. So I think we will have to look into your grades, the subjects that you've done, and also the possibility of taking up more subjects in a semester. So I think it would be more of a very detailed advice that we'll provide on a case-to-case basis. Great. And there is another question. Is it possible for undergraduate students to be involved in scientific projects? How can we join? What can we do to prepare for it? I think it's question about how undergraduate students can be involved in any of the psychology projects. I'm sure definitely there are ways in which you can do so. One of the ways is by doing an honors year in psychology, where you'll be doing an extensive project or research for 1 year. So that's how you get into research and complete your 4th year of undergrad.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I think we are almost at the end of the session. So we are done with all the questions. Thanks, Yushi and Samuel, so for sharing all your insights tonight. I think it's been a wonderful session. And thanks for making the time, and good luck. And for all the viewers, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share the email address once again, so you can get in touch with us if you have any further questions. And some of the questions that we have, there are some of the questions regarding the undergraduate programs, but I don't think the panelists today will be in a position to answer undergrad related questions. But always feel free to get in touch with us, and we have a team who can definitely get back to you with any inquiries or questions that you have, and we'll be happy to answer them. All right. Thank you, both of you, and good night. See you.
Welcome. Thanks, Akib. Bye.
See you. Bye.